Paul Robeson's high school just made local headlines with the principal sharing some incredible stats. Of the school's 800 girls, 115 are pregnant or already teen moms. Just imagine a class full of students, row after row. Now imagine 5 classrooms full. That's how many girls we're talking about. Okay, so that's 14% of Robeson's female students. Nationally, the birth rate for that age group, around 4%. Now, we've been talking about some of this community's problems with her the past week or so, and boy, did she respond. So we asked HLN's host and author of I Want, Jane Velez-Mitchell, to come back for this one. I just, you know, I go back, you and I've talked about this. I grew up in the inner city, and you know, there were girls that were getting pregnant, but boy, those girls were shunned. I mean, they were looked at as the sleazy girls. I mean, you just didn't get pregnant if you were.
At least when we were teenagers, we knew the goal was to not get pregnant.
Right.
That's not even the case
anymore. You were told
anymore.
that left and right.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's all gone out the window. I mean, we had 8 years of a president who was virulently anti-birth control, anti-sex education, anti-family planning, and preaching one thing: abstinence only. And we know from Sarah Palin's daughter and from many, many other examples, abstinence only does not work. And there's a very simple reason. The mind, the intellect, is a very low defense against biological urges. Biological urges will immediately trump the mind. If a person as sophisticated as Eliot Spitzer cannot control his biological urges with everything he had to lose, how can we expect teenagers in a Chicago public school
come on, Jay,
to control their biological
we're talking about
urges?
Men in power, okay? We had a president that, you know, got action in the White House with an intern. I mean, look how we're talking about young. That's a whole nother issue. You and I could go off on men in power.
Right.
but you
But if they can't control themselves, how can we expect these teenagers to control themselves when they're in a hormonal high at that moment? That's a peak of their hormonal urge, and we're telling them just abstinence only. We know it doesn't work. And what happened is that the whole culture shifted because of the Bush administration. So you had movies like Juno coming out that celebrated teen pregnancy. You had Jamie Lynn Spears, Britney's kid sister, 16 years old, pregnant. And she was on a kids show at the time. Millions of American kids saw that. What kind of messages does that send? We cannot keep celebrating having more and more kids, but we do it because we live in a consumer culture. And the business interests know the more people we have out there, the more buyers we have. So there's a drumbeat in this society. Procreate, procreate, procreate.
Okay, so how do you target teen girls now then? How do you tell them this is not what you want to be doing? Because let me just point out, I was reading about the principal at this high school, okay? He has now decided he wants to take this former crack house that's right across the street from the high school and turn it into a daycare for student use, okay? And here's another little tidbit. The principal, his mom, had him when she was 15. So he's saying, I can kind of understand what's happening here. I want to try and figure out how to help and add support. Is that enabling, or is that just addressing a problem he has right now? Because you don't want to even be in the point where you're having to turn a crack house into a daycare because all your students keep getting pregnant.
Right. Obviously, these beautiful children that are born into the world have to be cared for. It's not their fault. So, yes, I applaud all those efforts to make sure that these moms who are completely incapable when they're a teen. I mean, I remember what I was like when I was a teenager. I wasn't capable of raising a child. I don't know about you, but most teenagers are immature. Well, and they're not capable, so they need help.
And I was wild, and I got into trouble, and I did all kinds of horrible things. But can I tell you something? Getting pregnant, not on my list. That would, I mean, I knew, boy, that would be the end of it if I did that. But teenagers seem to have this mentality that it's okay.
Well, one of the things we have to do is provide them with birth control pills, which has become kind of a dirty word. And we need to start talking about that again.
So you're saying forget about the don't have sex. That just ain't going to be a reality nowadays.
Well, look, it's so funny because when you mention birth control, people automatically assume you're encouraging teenagers to have sex.
And pills.
You know, when I tell somebody to wear a seatbelt, I'm not saying go out and have a car accident. I'm saying if you have a car accident, you should be wearing your seatbelt so you don't go through the windshield. And it's the same thing with birth control. But we really aren't talking. When's the last time we had a national discussion about birth control?
That's a good point. I can't remember the last time we covered something like that. We seem to cover
Nobody
a lot of
talks
issues.
about
We
it.
hear Eric Holder, you know, our Attorney General, talking about domestic violence, but heck, maybe we should start talking about other women's issues, and that could start with our young girls and the fact that pregnancy rates are going up across the country.
Exactly. And powerful women like you have to set the agenda, and you are doing that, and I applaud you for that. And we women have to kind of seize control of the airwaves and say, these are the important issues we want to talk about, and stop letting a patriarchal society determine what is news and what isn't news.
Jane Velez-Mitchell, always great to see you. I hope we never have daughters because they're hosed. They'll never get out of the house. Always great to see you.
Great. Thank you, Kira, for having me on.
Come back tomorrow, okay? I'll come up with another great issue for us to discuss.
We'll do it.
Wonderful.